Welcome back, everyone. We are here at Be Productive, and I am your host, Clara Capano. Today, I have my friend Greg Schaffer with the CISO, and he is an expert in the area of cybersecurity. You know, people might wonder, what are we talking about with cybersecurity on a business platform about being productive? But you know what? Should something happen, you got to make sure you're protected so that you can make sure that you are staying consistent. And that's exactly what we're talking about today is our continuity, our ability to stay consistent and be able to show up should things happen. So Greg, welcome to the show. It's so good to see you again.
Thanks for having me again.
Yes. So, as an expert in this field, you know, when I hear things such as cybersecurity, I have to admit that a chill goes through me. It's, instant fear. And I love that you're here because you're taking something and teaching us that we don't have to be afraid when we are prepared. So, how do you work with your clients in helping them to design effective business continuity programs?
The first step is understanding where business continuity fits into the whole ecosystem, if you will, as far as resilience goes. That's referred to as the resilience triad. And what I mean by that is you have business continuity, disaster recovery, and incident response. So incident response is exactly what it sounds like. You respond to an incident, you got to have those processes in place beforehand. Disaster recovery is more about making sure that you get the proper IT systems up, the technology up in an order and a fashion in order to support the business so that the business disruption is as minimal as possible. Now, that's all driven by the effective business continuity plans. And we need to go through that in order to understand basically what would we do in order to keep the business running the way it's supposed to. So we run tabletop exercises, for example, on the plans. The plans are usually quite simple. It starts out with understanding what the impact to the business is. So we would perform a business impact analysis. In other words, if you lost this service, what would happen to the business? And for some institutions, like financial institutions, for example, they have solid business continuity plans in place, and they can go to a paper method to continue transactions. Otherwise, they would just have to tell customers, no, even though we have money that we can give to you for a withdrawal, we can't go through and process it. But they have things in place that they can in case they lose their connectivity. And then, as I said, you develop these plans in conjunction with the business needs and feed into that the needs with the disaster recovery plan. And because again, that's supposed to support the business continuity plan. And then also, how do you respond in order to minimize the business impact? And that's going to be your information, your incident response plan.
So it seems like almost like these tabletop exercises almost allow you to workshop real life events
Mhm.
so that you can, they're almost like drills that you go through.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
I like to take a like for example, current situation right now with regards to tabletop exercises that I script something every year, a different type exercise to go ahead and test the plan, if you will, because I want to make it interesting. If you just do a checklist and you say, "Do you do this? Do you do this?" It gets boring, and you don't have folks that are really engaged. Now, this past year in 2023, the scenario that I crafted in the spring was for generative AI. And it was pretty interesting that we found that our clients fell into two buckets, basically, those that knew what it was and had done something already to address it in policy, and those who hadn't. Of course, this means like ChatGPT and those sorts of things. And so the tabletop exercises are important in getting together the necessary stakeholders within the organization. And that doesn't mean just IT. It could be everybody from all the business units. Marketing is very important because you have to get messaging out there. Legal is very important because there are some, particularly if you do have an incident where you've lost some information or you've just even lost connectivity, sometimes there are some legal implications of how you need to report it. And all of this we want to try to discover before it actually happens, because every tabletop exercise that I've ever run has always discovered some gaps in their processes. And you might think, well, that's horrible that you find gaps. And no, 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 it's good. We're always going to find gaps. I always give them the example that when I was in basic training for the Air Force, I learned pretty early on that training instructor there would always be able to find something wrong with your locker or your bed if they wanted to. That was the whole point. You can never be 100% perfect. So it's really it's a way to discover gaps before the criminals do, and it's a way to proactively increase the security posture of the organization. But it must involve departments, as noted before, from across the organization.
Yeah. So I would imagine you've been running these scenarios again for many years.
Mhm.
The biggest upset that we had most recently was during the pandemic. And that's when a lot of this really started to, come more to the surface, I think, to a lot of the, I'll call them commoners like me who weren't too, knowledgeable about these. How did some of these exercises lead up and help people maneuver through and then even after the pandemic?
Well, that's one of my favorite stories because actually in 2018, our scenario that I scripted for our clients was a pandemic. And the response that I got from several of the clients was like, "Oh, we don't need to do this. I mean, come on, give us something realistic. A pandemic's never going to happen. Nothing happened with the avian bird flu back 10 years earlier." But I'm thankful that I ran it because obviously what ended up happening less than a year later or about a year later was COVID. COVID started. And what really happened with those that had gone through the exercise, they were much more prepared to face it when COVID actually happened. Because if you remember, like all incidents, usually this unfolds really fast. We went from being in a normal environment to everybody pretty much working from home in this within the span of a week. And so those that we did the exercise for the year before, they understood they had gaps with regards to the number of laptops that they needed, or they had gaps with licensing for remote access software, those sorts of things. And they were much better prepared for it when it actually happened. Whereas a couple of clients that we had brought on since then, they weren't quite as prepared for it. In the long term, though, they also, just by going through that exercise prior, they were more well positioned to the new normal that we're in right now, where working from home is more acceptable. You certainly see it a lot more, folks working from home, folks working remotely. Doing video conferencing was more of a one-off type thing prior to COVID, and now it's the way everyone works. And so that's why I try to encourage folks when we do these exercises, don't treat it as a check the box compliance thing. We're really, 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 that's probably one of the most business enablers that we do within information security.
Yeah, it is so powerful. And it reminds me of a quote from Jim Rohn where he said, don't wish for less problems, wish for better skills. And this kind of is what it's making me think of is, you got to get your skill sets. And this is part of our skill sets. Because, like you said, nobody ever thought we would need it. But man, aren't they glad they went through it? And, it's less like with the practicing, doing all the drills that we do when we're practicing a sport or whatever, things are thrown at us because we need to be able to react quickly. So I really appreciate you, bringing these things in and getting us to think like these. Now, as an expert in the field, you don't just go out and just do these consultations with companies. You've done many other things. And one of the things I know is you actually have written a book. Tell us a little bit about your book.
So the book, I'll hold it up for if you can see it. It's
Very
Information
nice.
Security for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses. And I'm currently working on the third edition. And this, I tried to take it from the approach of not a technical book. This is advice to give the executives of a small or mid-sized business. So it's written towards them. It's not written in technical mumbo jumbo. It's written in business language. I'll have the third edition. I think we'll have it coming out probably around the June timeframe this year. But if you want, you can get a free e-copy of the second edition off the website, vcsoservices.com. There's a button a little bit further down that says click on here for the book, and all you have to do is just click on there for the book.
Excellent. Well, Greg, thanks again for being here and for shedding some light on this. I know this is, again, things that we don't want to spend our time doing, but they're going to really position us to be able to maintain high levels of productivity should something happen. So thanks for being here. And for all of you watching, stay tuned. We'll be right back after this short break.